Hello student, welcome to my class. Today I am going to take class 10th history chapter 3 and the name of the chapter is Nationalism in India. This is part 2. So already we have completed its first part. In the first part we discussed that how the nationalism was rising in India with the movements like Rowlatt Satyagraha, non-cooperation movement and boycotting of Simon Commission. Now in this movement we saw that nationalism was rising day by day among the Indians. So after those three movements, Gandhiji thought to take a bigger step and to organize a much bigger movement, a movement which can unite the whole country. So to unite the whole country, he thought to start a movement on an issue which is a concern of whole country. And so he started the civil disobedience movement, or it is also called Salt March or Dandi March movement. So what happened in this movement, Gandhiji actually took salt as an issue to raise a movement. Because the salt, salt is a substance which is used by the richer people and also used by the poor people. So that's why he used salt as an substance to unite the whole country, and he used this salt issue to raise a movement. So what Gandhiji did, he first wrote a letter on 31st January 1930. He wrote the letter to the Irwin. He was then Viceroy of India, and he put his 11 demand on that letter. The 11 demands were concerned with the day-to-day life, and the most important demand of that time was the abolition of salt tax. Because that time British, they put salt tax on the manufacturing of the salt, and they also actually abolished the manufacturing of salt by the Indians. They said that now no Indians can manufacture the salt and you have to pay the taxes for the salt. So that's become a major issue of that time, because salt was a substance which was so commonly used, and people did not like that for such a common substance also the British is taking tax. So the Gandhiji wrote his demand and he sent it to Irwin. Though these demands were small demands, but it was a matter of much concern to each and every one. So in that letter, Gandhiji also gave ultimatum to the British that if you will not listen to my demand by 11th March, I will start civil disobedience movement. But as usual, the Britishers ignored the Gandhiji's letter, and then the civil disobedience movement started. What Gandhiji did, he took his 78 trustee, and with his 78 trustee volunteers, he started a march. He started his march from the Sabarmati ashram, and he walked 240 miles and reached the Dandi village. Dandi village was on the coastal area of Gujarat. So he started his journey, and it took 24 days to complete his journey. Every day he used to walk 10 miles, and then on the way, whenever he used to take rest, he used to give speeches, and in his lecture, everybody used to gather and listen to the Gandhijis, and Gandhiji used to explain to the public what his idea of Swaraj is and how he wants people to fight against the British with the peaceful manner, with the use of truth and non-violence. And everybody started appreciating and supporting Gandhiji in this movement. And finally, Gandhiji reached the Dandi village. He boiled the water, manufactured the salt, and when he broke the law of manufacturing the salt, with his movement, with this act, the movement started all over the country, and everybody started disobeying the British. So this civil disobedience movement is actually completely different from non-cooperation movement. Because in the non-cooperation movement, Gandhiji asked not to cooperate with the British, not to help the British. But in the civil disobedience movement, what he is saying? He is saying, don't obey the law made by the British. Break the law of the British. So what you can see, the intensity of the movement is increasing day by day. Indians are increasing the intensity of their movement. Now they are not ready to follow the rules and regulations which were made by the Britishers to control India. And in this movement, the people started breaking law. They started producing salt near the salt factory itself. They started boycotting the foreign clothes. They started picketing the liquor shop, and the farmers, they refused to pay the taxes. They refused to pay the chowkidari taxes, and many officers, the government officers, they resigned from their jobs, and people started entering the reserve forest. Actually, in the reserve forest, according to the forest policy of the British, nobody were allowed to enter. But they started entering the forest. They started using their fruits, their woods, and also they started grazing their animals on those reserve forests. So they are breaking the laws made by the British. Day by day, they were increasing this intensity of their movements. And when the intensity of the movement increased so much, and the British saw that the movement is spreading like a fire in the country, then British started arresting the Congress leader. He arrested many leaders. He arrested Gandhiji. He arrested Abdul Ghaffar Khan. Abdul Ghaffar Khan was a great leader. He was actually the disciple of Gandhiji in Peshawar. So he arrested him also. They started putting all the political leaders in the jail. So people started reacting to it. The people started using forces against the British. The clashes started between the people and the police. And the Britishers also started arresting the public as well. And he put 1 lakh people under arrest. The British put 1 lakh people in jail. And finally, when the violence increased so much, Gandhiji thought that it is becoming violent, and Gandhiji was completely against the violence principles. So he stopped the movement and he signed a Gandhi-Irwin Pact. And with this Gandhi-Irwin Pact agreement, the movement was put to an end. So in this pact, the Irwin promised the Gandhiji that I will release the political prisoners, all the prisoners, and you have to stop the movement, and you have to attend the second round table conference. So Gandhiji agreed with this agreement, and then he said, okay, I will attend the second round table conference. When the first round table conference happened, that time Gandhiji and others were doing this civil disobedience movement, and so they did not attend the first round table conference. But now Gandhiji promised that I will attend the second round table conference. So he attended the second round table conference. He went and talked to the British, but no negotiation was reached between the Gandhiji and the British. So finally Gandhiji returned back to India. And when he returned back to India, he saw that from the jail, no leaders were released. The Nehruji is still in jail. Abdul Ghaffar Khan is still in jail. And the British has declared the Congress party as an illegal party. British has also put so many restrictions in meeting, demonstration, boycott. So when Gandhiji saw this situation of India, he restarted the civil disobedience movement. But this movement, it continued for one more year, but it lost its momentum. So finally Gandhiji stopped this movement in 1934. So let's see how the different social group participated in civil disobedience movement. So let's see how rich farmer used to participate in was participating in the civil disobedience movement. See, the rich farmers actually supported this movement a lot. Rich farmers like Patidar of Gujarat and Jat of Uttar Pradesh, they actively participated in this movement. This rich farmers, they used to produce the commercial crops, and due to the economic depression, because the prices of the commercial crop decreases, so they were facing a big loss. They were not able to pay the high revenue which was demanded by the government, and government was refusing to listen to them, and so they were absolutely unhappy. So they participated in this movement in a big way by boycotting programs, by they stopped the payment of the revenues. In this way they participated in the movement. And for them, the civil disobedience movement was nothing but to fight against the high revenue. And they were actually disappointed with the high revenue, and they wanted to stop this high revenue after this movement. But when in 1931 Gandhiji signed the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, the high revenue was not decreased. And that's why they got so much disappointed that after coming from the second round table conference, when Gandhiji thought to restart the movement, they refused to participate again. So they actually participated before the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. After the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, when Gandhiji returned from the second round table conference, they did not participate because Gandhiji ended that movement without reducing the taxes. And so they lost their interest in this movement. Now let's see how the poor peasants, like poor farmers, participated in the movement. The poor farmers were actually fighting against the big landlords because they have to pay the heavy taxes to the landlords, and they were extremely disappointed with this heavy taxes, and because of this economic depression, they were unable to pay the taxes. So they wanted landlord to forgive their taxes. And so they started their movement. Actually, they actively participated in all the radical movement which were supported by the socialists and the communists. But they got very less support from the Congress because at that time our society was divided into many groups, and one group was against the another groups. And see, if we take the help of one group, the second and the second groups, they get they loses the trust. Actually, the Congress was taking the support from the big rich farmers, and so the poor peasants did not have support, does not have hope much from the Congress because they were with the big and rich farmers. And also the Congress did not supported the poor farmers because they thought that if we support the poor farmer, the rich farmer will get angry and they will not support us. So because of this difference between the rich farmer and the big and the poor peasants, the Congress did not supported the poor peasant. It took the help from the rich farmer. So poor peasants did not got any support from the Congress in this movement, but still they participated. Now let's see how business class participated in this movement. See, the business class, they actually wanted to extend their business. They wanted the expansion of their business, and they were absolutely against the colonial policy of the British, because this colonial policy of the British, they used to put lot of restriction on the Indian trade, and they used to support the imports of the goods from the Britain. And this business class were extremely against the imports of the goods from the Britain, because the goods which were coming from the Britain were cheap in cost, and they were also in good quality compared to Indian goods. Because the industrial revolution started first in Britain, and afterward it started in India, right? So that's why because it started in Britain first, they had a better technology and they could produce better goods than Indians, and that's why their goods were cheaper and in a better quality. And that's why the business class actually wanted to put restriction on the imports of the goods from Britain, and that's why they wanted to support the civil disobedience movement, so that after civil disobedience movement, the restriction can be put on this imports of the goods from the foreign country. And so to safeguard their interest, they organized the groups. They already organized their business class into various groups. Like in 1920, they formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress. In 1927, they formed a Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, that is called FICCI, and it was under the leadership of Purushottam Das Thakur Das and G.D. Birla. So they supported the civil disobedience movement a lot. They funded the movement, they financially helped the movement, and they also promised not to buy or sell the imported goods. And this way they actually were fighting in the Swaraj movement. And for them, the Swaraj movement is nothing but to stop the restriction on the trade, business and industry. And this way the business class actually supported the civil disobedience movement in a big way. But later on, after some time, they lost interest in the civil disobedience movement. And what was the reason for that? The reason for this was because the failure of the second round table conference. They had lot of hope from the second round table conference, and when no negotiation was reached between the British and the Gandhiji in the second round table conference, they lost their interest in the civil disobedience movement. They were also disappointed with lot of violence and militant activities which were being used during the movements. And they were also worried that if we stop our business for a long time, we will face more loss. And so they could not stop their business for a long time, and That's why they lost their interest in the civil disobedience movement. And also, the rise of communism, socialism, and in India, and the young Congress people started loving the socialism and communism, and so they got scared of this movement, because actually they were capitalists, and capitalists is absolutely against the principle of socialism. And so when the young Congress people started supporting socialism, they went against this movement. Now let us see how the industrial working class participated in this movement. So in this movement, actually the industrial working class supported, they did not give much support to this movement actually. And in Nagpur region, of course, they got some support. But apart from Nagpur region, they did not got much support from the industrial working class. And actually, in many places, when they started the movement, they started with the same idea, like boycotting the foreign clothes and foreign goods and picketing the liquor shop. In this way only, they also participated. And this movement, their movement was basically, it was not for the same demand like of Congress. For them, Swaraj means to decrease the working hour, to increase the wages and salary, to improve the working condition and housing condition. So they were actually demanding those demands which were concerned to their life. Alright, so this way they participated, they organized many strikes, you had the strike from the railway worker side. The railway workers, they organized their strike in 1930. The dock workers they organized their strike in 1932. And in 1930, hundreds of workers wearing the Gandhian cap, they participated in the rallies, they participated in the boycott campaigns, and they were actually the workers from the Chota Nagpur tin mines. So this way, definitely, they did not got much support from the working population, but some working population also participated in this movement. And actually, why working class did not participate much in this movement? Because Congress did not supported them. Because as I told you, there was so much of diversity in our society that if you support one class, the another class used to lose interest in that movement. And the Congress were taking help from the business class. And the working class and the business class are two opposite class. They were against each other. And so when the Congress was supporting the business class, the working class lost interest in Congress. And also the Congress did not supported much the working class. They did not give much help to the working class, because if they would have supported working class, the business class would have got angry. As they don't want to annoy the working business class, so they did not support the working class as well. And now let us see how women played an important role under the civil disobedience movement. So women played an important role. They participated in large number. Thousands of women used to come and listen to the Gandhiji's speech, and they also participated in protest, rally, marches, salt manufacturing, boycotting the foreign goods. In all those types of activity, women gave its participation. And many of the women's and women's leaders were put in the jail by the police because of this. And the women started believing at that time that secret service of women is to serve the nation. But actually, women did not got much support from Gandhiji and other Congress leader, because Gandhiji used to believe that women should look after the home and the health of the family member. She should try to become a good mother and good wife. Even the other Congress leader don't wanted to give important position in the organization to the women. So actually women were not getting much support from the Congress and Gandhiji, but still women played an important role in the civil disobedience movement. Now let us see what were some of the limitation of the civil disobedience movement, or disadvantage of the civil disobedience movement. So some of the disadvantage was ignoring the Dalit and depressed class. They did not took the support from the Dalit and depressed class. In fact, the Congress ignored the Dalit and depressed class, because they were taking help from the conservative Hindu society, and conservative Hindu societies were against the depressed and the Dalit class. And as I told you, the society was divided into various groups. So if you take support from one group, the other groups used to feel ignored or they did not had any trust on that issue. So same way, when the Congress took the help from Hindu conservative, the Dalit and depressed felt ignored, and they did not got trust on the Congress, and they did not participated much in the civil disobedience movement. On the other hand side, because the Congress people were associating with them itself with Hindu religious nationalism, so that's why the Muslim people got angry, and they said that we will not participate in the movement. So many Muslims did not participate in this movement because the Congress was taking help from Hindu religion nationalism. And another limitation of civil disobedience movement is that, like many Muslim leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah and others, they were demanding separate reserve seats for the Muslims in the Central Assembly. And Congress were totally against it because they said it's against the principle of unity and integration of the nation. And they refused to accept the demands of the Muslim leaders. And so the Muslim leaders and the Muslims did not participate much in civil disobedience movement. Then in 1931, when the movement was closed, when the first time the civil disobedience movement was closed, the Gandhiji actually did not talk much about decreasing the revenues, because the rich farmers were supporting Gandhiji so that the Gandhiji can reduce the high revenue. And Gandhiji did not reduce the high revenue, and he signed a Gandhi-Irwin Pact. And so the rich farmer lost interest in the movement, and they did not support Gandhiji afterwards. And another limitation of the civil disobedience movement was like working class, except the Nagpur region. No other working class participated in this movement because they were taking help from the rich industrialist, rich business class, and so the working class lost their faith in Congress and they did not participate. Now let us discuss one small topic of this chapter, which is very important topic, and that is Pune Pact of September 1932. So what is Pune Pact? Actually, the Bhimrao Ambedkar, he was actually supporter of Dalit and depressed class. He himself was from the Dalit and depressed class, and he was supporting them. He formed their organization, and he was fighting for their rights. And so he started demanding separate electorate for the Dalits. And when he put his demand, the British accepted his demand in the second round table conference. And when British accepted their demand, Gandhiji got angry and he said that I will do fasting and I will fast till my death if Ambedkar don't listen to me. And so when he started doing fasting, Ambedkar finally accepted Gandhiji's opinion, and when Ambedkar accepted Gandhiji's opinion, then the Pune Pact was signed between Congress and Ambedkar. So what was there in the pact? See this Ambedkar from his organization was demanding the separate electorate for Dalits. But in this pact, they said that okay, the reserved seats will in the provincial and central legislative council will be given to the Dalit and depressed class, but it should have a general electorate only. Means all people will commonly vote and elect the Dalit and depressed class. And so Gandhiji, with this signing of this Pune Pact, he stopped his fasting, and the friendship was re-established between Gandhiji and Ambedkar. So actually Gandhiji was not against the untouchables or the Dalits or the depressed class. He just don't wanted the unity and integrity of India to get affected because of separate electorate. He actually used to call untouchables as Harijan because he used to consider them as their God's child. He himself used to clean the public toilets so that he can raise the dignity of the Bhangis who used to clean the toilets. So he was not against the untouchable, but just for the sake of unity, he don't wanted to give separate electorate to the Dalits and untouchables. Alright, now let us see the sense of collective belongingness or the factors which led rise to nationalism in India. So many factors were there which gave rise to nationalism in India, like the factors like united struggle against British. Like we were fighting together against the British injustice, British exploitation, and that's movement itself united the whole country. Same way, there was a poverty which everybody was facing under the British rule. The farmers were facing poverty, the business people were facing poverty problem, even the working class and the other section of the society, because nobody was getting good salary and good post under the British rule. So many people were facing poverty under the British control, and that also was one factor which united everyone against British and led rise to nationalism in India. The another factor which led rise to nationalism in India was the folk songs and folklore, friends, symbols, various symbols and the fictions, the stories. All these things also united our country and gave rise to nationalism. Also, the India's identity was symbolized with the figure of Bharat Mata, with the song like Vande Mataram. All these things also lead rise to nationalism, because the Vande Mataram become a national patriotic song for whole country, and the Bharat Mata figure became a symbol of nationalism. All this also led rise to nationalism in India. The other factor which led rise to nationalism in India is folklore. Folklore is actually the stories and the songs which is related to our culture and tradition. And the people, the national leaders started giving importance to the folklore. Everybody started collecting the folklore. So many nationalists started collecting the folklore. Even Rabindranath Tagore started collecting the folklores from Bengal. And in Madras also, Natesha Sastry published the massive 4-volume collection of Tamil folk tales, and that was called Folklore of South India. So the folklore revision, when they started strengthening the folklores of India, it strengthened the nationalism of India. The another factor which led rise to nationalism in India was tricolor flag. The flag was also symbol of nationalism for India. Earlier we used to use the red, green, yellow color flag, in which we had eight lotus, which used to represent the 8 provinces of the British, and it also had the crescent moon. So this all, the lotus and the moon, used to represent Hindus and Muslim unity, and that was a symbol of nationalism. After 1921, Gandhiji redesigned the Swaraj flag, and he again put a tricolor of red, green and white. And in the middle, he put his spinning wheel, the charkha, which was the symbol of self-help, because the charkha or the spinning wheel used to produce khadi, and the khadi was actually was a symbol of self-help, because Gandhiji was asking to produce your own clothes yourself. And so the flag was also symbol of nationalism, because when we were using our national flag, we were saying to the British that we don't accept your rule. We want Indians rule in India. And that flag also became the symbol of nationalism during the national struggle. And also the reinterpretation of history. See, first our history was written by the British, and when British people wrote our history, they proved us that we are very inferior and British are superior and we need the help from the British. That's way they presented us in the history. But afterwards, Indians themselves wrote their own history. And when they reinterpret the history, they glorified our past. And when they glorified our past, the people started feeling proud of their past, they started feeling proud of their history, and this led rise to the rise of nationalism in India. And this way, there were various factors which led rise to the nationalism in India. And so finally what happened? The anger among the people started growing day by day. The people, the diverse people was continuously being united by the various leaders, and the movements which we were leading was organizing more and more. It was taking more and more organized form day by day. And then the national state and the nationalism feeling started rising in India. And all these things finally led to a final movement in India, and that was Quit India movement. So what was Quit India movement? Actually, the Crip mission during the Second World War. The Second World War started when the Second World War started, the Crip mission came to India. Because the Crip mission came to India so that they can take the support of Indians in the in the Second World War. They wanted Indians to fight on behalf of British in the Second World War. So in that situation, no, Gandhiji said that okay, we will support you, but you have to withdraw from India after the Second World War. So actually British refused this idea, and when they refused, no, then Gandhiji started this Quit India movement. And in this movement, he gave a slogan like do or die, or British, you should quit India. And all this slogan started in India. Many people started strike, hartal, procession, campaigns, national song, national flag, all the mass movement, they all became common all over the India. And many people, participated so actively in this movement, especially Jai Prakash Narayan, Aruna Asaf Ali, Ram Manohar Lohia, and many women's leaders like Matangini Hajra from Bengal, Kanaklata Barwa from Assam, and Rama Devi from Odisha. So many people participated in this movement, and British actually also took harsh step against them. It almost take 1 year for British to stop this movement, and finally British understood that now it is not easy to rule India, because India is getting more and more organized, unified, and they are organizing more and more intense movement day by day. And so finally with this movement, British agreed that we will give freedom to India. And finally after this movement, the India got freedom after 2 to 3 years, and this way our rise in nationalism led to the freedom of India. So this chapter has explained you how the rise of nationalism happened in India. I hope you understand this chapter. If you understand this chapter, student, please like, share and subscribe. MP Social View. Thank you student. Thanks for watching and happy learning.